Okay, hello everybody. Today your assignment is to read this article and then answer the questions at the end. So this article is over the history of Buddhism. It's another reading assignment just like we've done with all of the other religions thus far. So I'm going to go ahead and read along through this, and you can read along with me if you prefer. And then I'll read through the answers at the end as well. Buddhism began about 2,500 years ago when a young prince gave up his kingdom to seek enlightenment. It is said that Prince Siddhartha left behind his lovely wife, a rich palace, and every material comfort to find inner peace. Evil spirits assailed him, but he persisted in sitting in meditation. After 6 years, he achieved true understanding, or enlightenment. He became the Buddha, or the awakened one. The Buddha traveled around India for 50 years until his death in 483 BC. He taught the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, the 8 steps to achieve enlightenment. No one wrote down his teachings, but the Buddha formed a community of monks to carry on his message. After Buddha's death, 500 monks met in a council. One monk, an exceptionally sharp fellow with an excellent memory, could recite all the Buddha's teachings. The other monks debated about the details until they were satisfied. These lessons from the Buddha, called the sutras, were translated into many languages and passed along by word of mouth for over 200 years. Later, the teachings of Buddha were written down on palm leaves in the 1st century AD. Two groups of Buddhists emerged. One group called themselves the Theravada, or the Way of the Elders. This group developed between 200 BC and 200 AD. This group was more traditional and still exists today in Southeast Asia. They believe that people reach nirvana by their own efforts. The monks, called arhats, shave their heads and wear saffron robes. They never marry and they live a simple life. They carry begging bowls from house to house to ask for food. Their goal is to achieve nirvana by themselves. They want to help others by setting a good example. The second group that branched off was more liberal. They became the Mahayana Buddhists, and this movement began in the 2nd century AD. Today, they exist in Central and East Asia. Mahayana Buddhists believe that you don't have to achieve enlightenment alone, but that other beings called bodhisattvas can help you. A bodhisattva is one who will help a Buddha in the future. They stay and help others achieve enlightenment before leaving the earth. Zen Buddhism is a group with Mahayana Buddhism. It began in China in the 13th century and has fascinated many people because of its intriguing puzzles called koans. Zen monks ask odd questions like, what is the sound of one hand clapping? This puzzle is called a koan and is supposed to help the students think in a new way. Another famous koan is, how did your face look before your ancestors were born? Zen Buddha focuses on meditation. Buddhism is a peaceful religion. The Buddha never forced anyone to study his teachings, so Buddhism spread gradually over the Indian plains along trade routes. An emperor called Ashoka adopted Buddhism and made it the state religion of India. He lived from 272 BC to 231 BC. This emperor made fairer laws because of the Buddhist teachings, and he had these laws written on stone columns, which were erected around his empire. He sent Buddhist missionaries all over India and beyond. Some of them went to Egypt, Palestine, and Greece. It took centuries for Buddhism to reach the West. In the last half of the 1800s, Europeans began to study the ancient cultures of India and China. Explorers discovered exciting parts of Asia for the first time. They wrote about the monasteries, temples, and chants, as well as the yaks and yak butter tea that seemed so strange to them. English people found these teachings refreshing and different from the rather stiff and proper rules of British life. Societies began to spring up to study Oriental objects. Sipping tea and eating crumpets while discussing Buddhism became a fad. In the 20th century, Buddhism was suppressed because Eastern nations that used to be Buddhist came under communist control. When this happened in Mongolia, China, and Korea, Buddhist monks and nuns had to leave their monasteries. Their temples were destroyed and no new monks could be trained. Scriptures could not be printed. Tibetan Buddhists who had been in Tibet since the 8th century were also forced out of their homeland by the Chinese communists. They settled in India with their leader, the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama has worked tirelessly for Tibetan religious freedom. However, Buddhism is making a comeback. Buddhists practice in Thailand, Sri Lanka, Russia, Indonesia, Taiwan, Hong Kong, South Korea, and Nepal. Buddhism has been growing in China since 1977. In Tibet, monasteries have been open since the 1980s, and scriptures are being reprinted. Today, there are more than 300 million Buddhists in the world. Even though there are many branches of Buddhism, many Buddhists say the same prayer, may all beings be free from sorrow. And so then we have our questions. Number 1 asks, what is the name of the path that Buddha taught? The Way of Enlightenment, the Silk Road, the Eightfold Path, or the Peaceful Path? So which one of these did we talk about in the reading? And we've talked about in class several times. What is the name of the Buddhist scriptures? Is it the Quran, the Sutras, the Torah, or the Bible? Well, we know that 3 of these belong to Western religions. 3 of those belong to Western religions, so only one of these could be the Buddhist scriptures. Who is the leader of the Tibetan Buddhists? Who is the leader of the Tibetan Buddhists? Is it the Dalai Lama, the Prime Minister of China, the Pope, or the Archbishop of Canterbury? And again, that is right there at the end of the reading, what we just read. It's right there. Which country became especially fascinated by Oriental subjects in the 1800s? Was it Great Britain, the United States, China, or Brazil? That was toward the end of the reading as well. They talked about how people would sit around and sip tea and eat crumpets. So what country did they specifically talk about? Number 5, what is the name of a Zen Buddhist puzzle? A Mad Lib, a Koan, a Fortune, or a Revelation? That's in the middle of the reading. We talked about one of those. Approximately when did Buddhism reach the West? 1000 BC, 1450, 1875, or 500 BC? So look for the date. Which political movement was the most damaging to the Buddhists? Democracy, socialism, communism, or anarchy? And what word goes at the end of this Buddhist prayer? May all beings be free from pain, hunger, sorrow, or ignorance. This one is also literally at the end of the reading, and we've talked about it as well in class already. So that is the end of the assignment today. Make sure that you answer all of your questions and get this submitted to me, and I look forward to seeing you in class.